You say something simple, and then you immediately start explaining it. You add another sentence, just in case they misunderstood. Then another one, because the last sentence might have sounded too harsh. Then you give context they never asked for. You explain what you meant, what you did not mean, and why you said it that way. Sometimes you even apologize before anyone has accused you of anything. By the end, a small conversation has turned into a long defense of your character, and afterward, you replay the whole thing in your head. You wonder whether you talked too much. You wonder whether you made yourself look guilty. You wonder why you could not simply say what you meant and stop. If this happens often, you may think you are just bad at communicating. But over-explaining is usually not about having too many words. It is often about feeling unsafe with the possibility of being misunderstood. The words are only what the fear looks like on the outside. Underneath them, your mind may be trying to prevent rejection, conflict, disappointment, or blame. That is why you can over-explain even when you did nothing wrong. Your brain is not necessarily trying to prove a fact. It may be trying to protect your relationship with the other person. It may be trying to protect your image in their mind. It may even be trying to protect you from an old feeling you have known for years. The first reason people over-explain is fear of being misunderstood. Being misunderstood can feel surprisingly threatening when connection matters to you. You may know exactly what you meant, but you cannot control what another person hears. That gap can make your mind uncomfortable, so you start filling the gap with more information. You explain your intention. You explain the circumstances. You explain the tone you were trying to use. You explain what happened before and after. You keep adding details because you hope enough context will make misunderstanding impossible. But no amount of explanation can completely control another person's interpretation. That is the painful part. You may be using words to solve something words cannot fully solve. The second reason is fear of conflict. For some people, disagreement feels normal and manageable. For others, even mild tension can feel like the beginning of something dangerous. A short reply can feel cold. A raised eyebrow can feel like disapproval. A pause can feel like anger. When your nervous system reads tension quickly, you may rush to soften everything you say. You add disclaimers before your point. You reassure the other person that you are not criticizing them. You explain that you understand their side. You make your own opinion smaller before you even express it. You are not only communicating anymore, you are trying to prevent the emotional temperature from rising. The third reason is a strong need to be seen as a good person. Most people care about how others see them. But for some people, being seen as rude, selfish, difficult, or careless feels almost unbearable. So when there is even a small chance of being judged negatively, they start building a case for themselves. They explain why they were late. They explain why they said no. They explain why they need space. They explain why they changed their mind. They explain why they cannot help this time. The facts may already be enough. But emotionally, enough does not feel like enough. What they really want is reassurance that the other person still sees them as kind and reasonable. This is where over-explaining can become a form of image management, not because you are manipulative, but because being misunderstood feels connected to being rejected. The fourth reason is that you may have learned that your simple truth was not accepted when you were younger. Maybe no was not treated as a complete answer. Maybe you were expected to justify your feelings. Maybe adults questioned your memory or motives. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive when something hurt. Maybe you had to prove that your reasons were valid before your needs were respected. When that happens repeatedly, a child can learn an important rule. My truth is not enough unless I can explain it perfectly. That rule can survive long after childhood ends. As an adult, you may still feel pressure to present evidence for ordinary choices. You may feel that every boundary needs a detailed defense. You may feel that every emotion needs a logical explanation. You may feel that every decision must be acceptable to everyone before you are allowed to make it. The fifth reason is that over-explaining can come from being blamed unfairly in the past. If you have often been accused of things you did not intend, you may become highly sensitive to possible blame. You start noticing tiny signs that someone might be forming the wrong conclusion. Then, you move quickly to correct it. You want to get ahead of the accusation before it arrives. You provide details nobody requested. You clarify things that were not actually unclear. You defend yourself before there is a conflict to defend yourself from. This can make you sound anxious, even when you are telling the truth. And then you may worry that sounding anxious makes you look guilty, so you explain even more. That is how the loop feeds itself. The sixth reason is low trust in your own right to make choices. You may technically know that you are allowed to say no, but emotionally, you may still feel that permission has to come from someone else. So instead of saying, "I cannot come tonight," you give a long list of reasons. You mention your workload. You mention your sleep. You mention what happened yesterday. You mention what you have to do tomorrow. You hope the explanation will earn approval for a decision that was already yours to make. Over-explaining often appears where self-permission is weak. The more confident you are that your choice is legitimate, the less evidence you usually feel compelled to provide. The seventh reason is people-pleasing. People-pleasing is not simply being nice. It is often an attempt to stay safe by keeping other people comfortable. If someone might be disappointed, you may feel responsible for fixing that disappointment. If someone might be annoyed, you may feel pressure to calm them down. If someone might think badly of you, you may feel pressure to change their mind. Over-explaining becomes one of the tools you use to manage their emotional response. You try to make your boundary painless for them. You try to make your refusal impossible to criticize. You try to make your needs easy to accept. But sometimes a healthy boundary will disappoint someone. Sometimes a reasonable decision will still be inconvenient for another person. Sometimes people will misunderstand you, even when you communicate clearly. Trying to prevent every negative reaction can turn ordinary communication into emotional labor. The eighth reason is anxiety about ambiguity. A simple statement leaves room for interpretation. That can feel uncomfortable. You may think, "What if they think I am angry? What if they think I do not care? What if they think I am making excuses? What if they think I am avoiding them?" Your mind creates many possible misunderstandings at once. Then you try to answer all of them before any of them have actually happened. This is why an explanation can become much longer than the situation requires. You are responding to an imaginary audience of possible critics. The real person in front of you may not be questioning you at all. The ninth reason is perfectionism in communication. You may believe there is a perfect combination of words that will make everyone understand you exactly as you intend. So you edit yourself while you are speaking. You correct small phrases. You add exceptions. You add nuance. You repeat the point in a different way. You keep searching for a version that cannot be misread. But human communication is never perfectly controlled. Every person hears words through their own history, mood, expectations, and beliefs. Clarity matters. Perfection is impossible. When you expect perfect understanding, normal communication can feel like a test you are always about to fail. The 10th reason is shame. Shame is the feeling that a mistake does not merely mean you did something wrong. It can feel like the mistake proves something is wrong with you. When shame is easily activated, even small misunderstandings can feel dangerous. If someone questions your behavior, you may hear a much larger message. You are careless. You are selfish. You are difficult. You are a bad person. Then your explanation becomes an attempt to protect your identity, not just clarify one event. This is why the intensity can seem out of proportion to the conversation. You are defending yourself from a meaning that may never have been spoken aloud. There is another reason over-explaining can be hard to notice. Sometimes it is rewarded. People may tell you that you are thoughtful because you give lots of context. They may say you are considerate because you anticipate every concern. They may appreciate how carefully you explain yourself. Those qualities can be real strengths. The problem is not being thoughtful or detailed. The problem begins when detail is driven by fear rather than usefulness. A healthy explanation helps another person understand. An anxious explanation tries to control what they think of you. Those can sound similar from the outside, but they feel very different inside your body. One feels clear and intentional. The other feels urgent and hard to stop. You may notice your chest tightening as you talk. You may feel pressure to keep going until the other person looks satisfied. You may watch their face for signs of approval. You may feel immediate regret after sending a short message, and then send 3 more. You may reread your texts and add clarifications nobody requested. These are useful clues that the explanation is serving anxiety more than communication. So, how do you stop over-explaining without becoming cold or careless? The first step is to notice the moment when explanation turns into defense. Ask yourself whether the other person actually asked for more information. Ask whether there is a real misunderstanding in front of you. Ask whether you are clarifying a fact or trying to control an impression. That question alone can slow the pattern down. The second step is to practice shorter first responses. You do not have to jump from over-explaining to saying almost nothing. Try giving the smallest complete answer first. I cannot make it tonight. I need more time before I decide. That did not work for me. I would rather not discuss that. I changed my mind. These sentences can feel exposed when you are used to wrapping every choice in reasons. That discomfort does not mean the sentence is wrong. It may simply mean you are no longer hiding your boundary inside an explanation. The third step is to let people ask follow-up questions. You do not have to answer every possible question in advance. If someone needs more context, they can request it. This creates a healthier rhythm in conversation. You speak, they respond. You clarify, if clarification is actually needed. Communication becomes a shared process, instead of a presentation you must perfect alone. The fourth step is to separate explanation from permission. You can explain a decision without asking the other person to approve it. There is a difference between saying, "Here is why I chose this," and saying, "Please agree that I was allowed to choose this." That difference can be subtle, but emotionally, it is enormous. The fifth step is to tolerate a small amount of misunderstanding. This may be the hardest part. You cannot make every person see you accurately at all times. Sometimes someone will think you are too quiet. Someone else will think you talk too much. One person will think your boundary is reasonable. Another may think it is selfish. Your job is not to create a version of yourself that nobody can criticize. Your job is to communicate honestly enough that you can respect your own words afterward. The sixth step is to stop treating every facial expression as a verdict. People pause for many reasons. They may be thinking, they may be tired, they may be distracted, they may simply have a neutral face. If you instantly interpret their silence as disapproval, you may start explaining to solve a problem that does not exist. Give the moment a little space before you rush to repair it. The seventh step is to notice where your body feels the urge to explain. Maybe your stomach tightens. Maybe your heart speeds up. Maybe your voice becomes faster. Maybe you feel a strong need to fill silence. That physical signal can become your cue to pause. Take one breath before adding another reason. Let the previous sentence exist on its own for a moment. The eighth step is to practice believing yourself. If you know why you made a decision, you do not always need everyone else to understand it immediately. If you know you meant no harm, you can still listen if someone tells you they were hurt. Self-trust does not mean refusing feedback. It means feedback does not automatically erase your own perspective. You can hold both realities at once. Their experience matters. Your intention and context matter too. The ninth step is to learn the difference between accountability and self-erasure. Accountability sounds like, "I see how that affected you, and I want to repair it." Self-erasure sounds like, "I must prove that I am not a bad person before I can hear what you are saying." The first keeps you present. The second pulls you into panic. You can apologize when an apology is needed, without putting your entire character on trial. You can correct a misunderstanding, without begging to be seen as good. You can explain a mistake without explaining your whole life. The 10th step is to give yourself permission to disappoint people sometimes. This does not mean becoming inconsiderate. It means accepting that another person's disappointment is not always evidence that you did something wrong. You can cancel plans for a legitimate reason, and they may still feel disappointed. You can set a boundary, and they may still dislike it. You can choose differently from what they hoped, and still be a caring person. When you stop treating disappointment as danger, you need fewer words to protect yourself from it. It also helps to notice which relationships make you over-explain the most. You may communicate calmly with some people and become extremely defensive with others. That difference matters. Sometimes the pattern is mostly inside you. Sometimes the relationship itself is unclear, critical, unpredictable, or demanding. Sometimes both are true. A healthy relationship usually allows ordinary explanations to be enough. It does not require you to submit a legal defense for every feeling, need, or choice. If someone repeatedly demands excessive justification, pay attention to that pattern. Healing is not learning to explain yourself perfectly to difficult people. Sometimes healing is realizing you do not need to participate in every interrogation. There is also a useful question to ask before you send the extra paragraph. What am I hoping this paragraph will make them feel about me? Maybe you want them to think you are kind. Maybe you want them to know you are not angry. Maybe you want them to promise they are not disappointed. Maybe you want certainty that the relationship is still safe. Once you identify the real need, you can respond to that need more directly. Sometimes you may need reassurance. Sometimes you may need a boundary. Sometimes you may need to accept uncertainty. And sometimes you may simply need to put the phone down and let the conversation breathe. You can also practice replacing long defenses with simple confidence. Thank you for understanding. That is what works for me right now. I appreciate your concern, but I have made my decision. I did not mean it that way, and I can see why it sounded that way. I need some space, and I will reach out when I am ready. These sentences are not magical scripts. They are examples of what communication sounds like when you stop trying to eliminate every possible negative reaction. At first, shorter answers may feel rude, even when they are respectful. That feeling is important to notice. It may show how deeply you learn to equate explanation with kindness. But kindness does not require endless justification. Respect does not require surrendering your privacy. Honesty does not require revealing every detail. And a boundary does not become valid only after everyone agrees with it. Over time, you may discover that most conversations do not collapse when you say less. People often understand more than your anxious mind predicts. Some will ask questions, and you can answer them. Some will disagree, and you can survive that too. Some may misunderstand you, and you can decide whether correcting them is worth your energy. The goal is not to become silent. The goal is to make your words a choice instead of a reflex. You can be detailed because detail is useful. You can explain because you want to connect. You can clarify because something is genuinely unclear. But you do not have to keep talking because fear says your first answer was not enough. Your first answer is sometimes enough. Your no can sometimes be enough. Your preference can sometimes be enough. Your memory can sometimes be enough. Your discomfort can sometimes be enough. Your decision can sometimes be enough. And you do not have to earn the right to exist comfortably in other people's minds. Not everyone will understand you perfectly. Not everyone will approve of every choice you make. That is not a communication failure. That is part of being a separate human being. The deeper healing is learning that misunderstanding is uncomfortable without always being dangerous. Disagreement is uncomfortable without always being rejection. Disappointment is uncomfortable without always meaning you are selfish. Silence is uncomfortable without always meaning someone is angry. When your nervous system learns those differences, your words can become simpler. You can stop building a courtroom around every conversation. You can stop presenting evidence for needs that are already real. You can stop apologizing for taking up ordinary emotional space. The next time you notice yourself adding one more explanation, pause for a second. Ask whether the sentence adds clarity or only reduces anxiety. If it adds clarity, say it. If it only serves fear, see what happens when you let the previous sentence stand. You may feel exposed at first. You may feel the urge to rush back in and fix everything. Stay with that feeling for one breath longer than usual. That small moment is practice. You are teaching yourself that you can be clear without defending your whole identity. You are teaching yourself that other people can have reactions without those reactions defining you. You are teaching yourself that a good person does not need a perfect explanation for every choice. And little by little, you may discover something surprisingly peaceful. You do not have to explain yourself into being worthy of understanding. You were already worthy before the explanation began.